but the various representations that they make. So at minimum, this at least gives the transparency, and people can follow up, and a good investigative press, responsible press, is very important in this kind of situation.
Thank you, Ms. Lavelle. I think there was a question from the representative from Honduras. Please, you have the floor.
Muchas gracias, doctora Klinger. En primer lugar, deseo agradecer a la doctora Lavelle por la oportunidad que nos da de escuchar sus sabias palabras. Nos sentimos muy honrados de poder escucharla sobre un tema tan importante como es la corrupción. También agradezco a la doctora Klinger por todos los esfuerzos, por su eficiencia para organizar estas conferencias tan importantes, y también a las personas que están en la mesa. Tengo dos preguntas. La primera, algo contestó usted ya a una persona que preguntó, pero de todas maneras doy otro sesgo al tema. Quiero preguntarle, puesto que la subregión de América Latina sigue siendo tratada como una de las regiones donde la corrupción no disminuye y por lo contrario parece que aumenta, quisiera preguntarle si hay estudios, si hay estadísticas, si hay indicaciones sobre si ha disminuido el soborno de parte de las transnacionales o grandes compañías en su trato con los gobiernos en los países de América Latina. Y si, en fin, si se sabe, si todavía se nos está tentando con estos sobornos. La segunda pregunta que tengo es en cuanto a la participación de la sociedad civil. Dijo usted que se está observando una tendencia inquietante en el sentido de una indebida interferencia de los gobiernos sobre las actividades de las organizaciones de la sociedad civil responsables. Esta palabra que usted dijo, responsables. Como dicen en inglés, where do you draw the line? O a dónde corta la línea para de qué manera se percibe que una organización de la sociedad civil sea o no sea responsable. Y si un simple registro que un gobierno quiera establecer sobre las organizaciones, porque las organizaciones de la sociedad civil son extranjeras muchas veces, ¿verdad? Reciben capital extranjero. Si esto se puede, un simple registro puede considerarse indebido o no. Muchas gracias.
Thank you again for this question. Do we know whether multinationals pay less bribe or not? We don't know. But there's one thing that we do know, is that having identified the extracting industry as a very big business around the world, with very large multinationals wanting to have access to the resources in the countries around the world. This was one of our early focus of intervention, and brought a number of those leaders around the same table in order to do what I mentioned earlier, of being able to get those leaders to develop codes of conduct, to agree to zero tolerance towards bribe paying, and to work differently and more transparently in terms of what they pay, to publish what they pay to the government. And this has become become much bigger now, and it is called EITI, the Extractive Industry Transparency Initiative. Mr. Blair decided to support this in a fairly big way a few years ago, and now there's a board of directors, and there's a group of people, sort of a bit of an offshoot from Transparency International, but we're working very closely with them, that have taken our first work and are taking it to a much greater, deeper level. The extracting industries are very big in Central America. If I look at Chile, for example, certainly my compatriots in Canada in the mining industry. I've been in Chile for a long time, and I know that many other companies from around the world are operating in this region. So my point is that we're working with them. We're trying to put pressure on those industries so that they behave in the way that you would wish to, in a way that is transparent, is accountable, and that, you know, with a pact of zero tolerance. And also we are pressing them where they have confidentiality agreement to tell the country, and we're pushing the country as well to tell the companies that this is something that we should get rid of and bypass and agree together to publish the information on its own. So, you know, I'm not answering directly because I don't know, but at least a lot of things are happening in the area that you've identified. In terms of the NGOs, the reason why I used the term responsible, and I should have used also the word accountable, I think that NGOs, like any other groups of society, have to be able to have their own a governance structure that works. They need to be able to report publicly what they do. They need to report the sources of their funds, and hopefully that they've been able to achieve some results with these funds. And I think that when you have that, usually it's a good source of prevention from getting an NGO which can be a front for something else. So, you know, one has to be very careful. So this is why we're using these two terms, responsible and accountable, and transparent, maybe a third one. Okay.
Thank you. I think there are two questions there, two gentlemen. Could you please give them the mic? Please go ahead.
Yes, Dr. Olivelle, my name is Gustavo Coronel, and my question has to do with how can the OAS go beyond, as the title of your lecture suggests, go beyond words and paper to become an effective player in the fight against corruption, given that the OAS is an organization of governments, and governments are usually the ones that generate the most corruption, while societies are the victims of governments. I just completed a study which is published by Cato Institute on corruption during the government of President Hugo Chavez in Venezuela. And you have said that many leaders have gained power on the basis of their anti-corruption platform. Well, my conclusion was in this study that although, yes, President Chavez did promise to fight against corruption, the level of corruption today in Venezuela is probably the highest in Venezuelan history. So what can the OAS do about these things?
We'll take another question there in the back, please. Please identify yourself.
Certainly. Madam LaBelle, thank you, and of course, Irina, as always, for providing this forum. I'm Bronson Lee with the Gallup organization, and as always, our ears perk up when we hear someone say the voice of the people, because that's what we're known for, is the opinion and the perspectives. One of the things we're doing is a world poll of measures of well-being, such as health and law and order and transparency. And what we're finding is that there's really two distinctions made there. One is the perception of people of our leaders are honest, our policemen are honest, my neighbors are honest. The second is that fine, slippery slope of, am I personally willing to participate, and at what extent? What is acceptable? When you said the voice of the people, I'm curious, how are you measuring that? And what are you pointing to when you say this is what we hear the people say that they want?
As a matter of fact, I'm talking about Gallup. Next, on December 7th, Transparency International will publish the results of our part of your Voice of the People survey. I think it'll be about 60,000 people this year, if I'm not mistaken, at least for our purpose. And this is a much more direct questioning where we're asking people, for example, how much of your household income have you had to use to pay bribes in order to get essential services or to, to the police, or not just frivolous, but essential services. And I can tell you that in Cameroon last year, the report was over 40%. And the annual income of those families is around $600 US. There's not much left, even for food, in that respect. And these are families of 4 to 5 children, which is about the average in that country. Now, I must admit that Cameroon was at the top, but still, when I used the Mexico, but I could have used many, many other countries around the world and give us similar. So it is asking the people these sorts of questions and asking them to rank who they consider, what institutions they consider as being most affected by corruption. And unfortunately, political parties and parliamentarians in many countries around the world, not just in Latin America, are very high or at the top most of the time. Police is not far, and neither is the judiciary. So, and you were trying to understand why. What is this? And I think that financing of political parties might have something to do with that. I'm not suggesting it's the only reason, but I think people, when they see very large sums of money going to political parties, wonder the influence that the people who have paid a lot of money will have on these individuals, candidates or party. And the other one is that when the when the contributions to political parties and candidates is not made public, then people have no idea even of knowing. And they feel that, if there's something to hide, there's got to be something under there that doesn't smell very good. So we are pressing, of course, at a minimum for ensuring that there be credible reporting, validation, auditing of what is provided to political parties. And, that's one of the one. What can the OAS do? Well, the OAS has been in many ways and remains in a privileged situation because they do work with the leaders of the Americas. Last week I had the opportunity of meeting with the leaders of Panama, Peru, and Chile on a very important day in Chile on the 23rd. And many, many things happened on that day, which was most interesting. In terms of commitment, in terms of very specific commitments by the president of Chile. So what can the OAS do? I think that it certainly, I think the power of bringing people around the same table and getting them to share on how successful they have been, what has worked, what have been the problems, and seeing what kind of special support is one kind of thing. Secondly, the monitoring of the convention remains a very important tool that the OAS has. And pressing for more than these 3 articles, pressing for the whole convention to be monitored, all its articles. And also, as I mentioned in my comments, for the OAS, which has been a leader in this area, to ensure that there is some support and that governments do not, see civil society as part of the solution, see the business sector as part of the solution. Because it's only when you bring all of these parties to the same table that hopefully you have clarity, you have appropriate solutions, but then also you have public commitment that people can hold you up to. So I think, the list could be very long, but I think these are some of the ideas that the OAS, I think, can continue to work on in the future.
Thank you, Ms. Levin. I'm going to take the last 3